Okay, today we're going to be talking about 5 reasons to raise a family in Seattle, Washington. Now, I grew up in this area. I know what it's like to be a kid here, but it has changed a lot. So, whether you love Seattle and you're already here, or you're thinking about moving and want to know what it's really like, today we are going to get into it together. Stay tuned. So if this is your first time on my channel, welcome, welcome, welcome. We are living in Seattle, Washington here. I am a real estate broker who loves helping people just like you relocate here to the Seattle Bellevue area. And we have a ton of people coming in here all the time for new jobs, for family, to be a part of the beautiful Pacific Northwest. And there are lots of great reasons to live here and especially raise a family here. So please make sure that you like and subscribe to the video so that we can keep publishing content and hopefully help you find exactly what you're looking for. Also, feel free to comment. I read those things. I thrive on those comments. So please connect and let me know if your experience agrees with mine. Maybe you have something different or a question, anything like that. And last but not least, I am a real estate agent. So the purpose of this channel is to meet nice people like you who may be relocating and want to buy a house. And so if you find yourself in that position, you click with my vibe, feel free to give me a call or reach out on my website, homeproassociates.com, and I would love to be your local Seattle realtor. Now, with no further ado, let's talk about why you may want to live in the Seattle area with your family, or maybe not. So I am a third generation Seattleite. I lived here, my parents lived here, and my grandparents were the first generation to come here from Ohio and Eastern Washington, respectively. They both worked at the University of Washington, and one of the things that they always talked to me about when I was a kid was the value of being around well-educated people. They felt that our little church there next to the U District and the greater Seattle area had a relatively high concentration of smart people. And they liked that because they felt that it was a good influence on me and people around me to be around smart, well-educated people. So if that is your thing, we have a lot of it. One of the best things about Seattle is the thriving economy that we have here. So we have a lot of jobs in Seattle. We have a lot of jobs in Bellevue, and they tend to be highly paid executive jobs, tech jobs, lawyers, doctors, nurses, firefighters. We have a lot of people here who are smart, who are hardworking, who are good citizens, and have really made a name for themselves in their field. And those types of hardworking people are, in my opinion, I guess this is all my opinion, so I'll just try to say it straight without saying anything that would be offensive. I try to avoid that. But if you want your kids to be smart and well educated, if that's your goal, then you want to raise them around people who share those values. They have a lot of data about how you tend to be like the type of people that you spend time with. If you want to be thin and fit, you make a thin and fit friends group, right? If you want to be extremely wealthy, you make friends with people who are extremely wealthy. It's who you hang out with. You adopt their beliefs and their habits and their behaviors. And that's a lot of what success comes down to. And we have a lot of successful people here in Seattle. So that is the number one reason that you might want to raise your family here in the Seattle area. The number two reason that you might want to raise your family here in the Seattle area is that it has a gorgeous preponderance of natural resources. A lot of people who I talk to who have sold their house and moved away, maybe moved to Florida, Tennessee, different places. One of the things that they miss about living in the Seattle area is the mountains, the trees, the lakes, and the rivers. We have what one of my clients called eye candy in every direction. We have mountain ranges on both sides of us. We have the Puget Sound, we have Lake Washington, we have Lake Sammamish, we have downhill skiing, cross-country skiing, canoeing, boating, water skiing, fishing, crabbing. We have Mount Rainier climbing, and we have woods everywhere that you can hike. So whether or not you see yourself as an avid backpacker or country skier. I have friends who do that type of thing. That's not really me. REI, my grandmother actually knew the lady who was the founder of REI, which is a outdoor gear place. They have a lot of classes. They have hiking equipment, skiing. You can rent a lot of stuff there. They sell even mountain climbing gear and that type of a thing. But it's important to not just jump into these activities without knowing what you're doing. So take a class, join a meetup, get with some people who like to do these things, and go with a group, ideally with someone who's experienced. Now, I'm the type of parent that doesn't want my kid just sitting in front of the screen all day. As they get older and older, it's harder and harder to avoid that. But one of the things that my son really enjoys, which I'm thrilled to have him be able to do, is an outdoor school experience. There are all sorts of different outdoor schools, and we've tried a lot of them through the years. So if you want any feedback on any particular ones, I'm happy to advise. But basically, it gets the kids comfortable with going outside and being in the elements. It's cold, it's rainy, it's sunny, it doesn't matter. You go outside and you do all sorts of different things. Learn how to use a knife, learn how to make a fire, learn how to forage for dandelions or plantain, medicinal herbs, different sorts of projects, tuning into nature, learning how to hide, and just disconnecting from the screens, I think, is a really valuable thing for kids to be able to do. I really like going on walks and bicycle rides with my kids. My son loves this more extreme, like outdoor school type of thing. So there are all sorts of different opportunities, but being in Seattle, we are spoiled for choice here. It's a really wonderful place in terms of outdoor recreation options. The third reason to raise a family in this area, in the Seattle, Bellevue area, is the cultural opportunities that abound. Now, we've talked about smart people, we've talked about going outside, but as we all know, Seattle does not always have the perfect outdoor weather. In fact, it tends to be cloudy and rainy. But it's never too snowy. You can usually drive around and go places. So for a certain part of the year, I would say about 6 months of the year, people feel like they'd prefer to limit themselves to indoor activities. And if that's you, don't worry, we have tons of stuff. There are an amazing number of museums, concerts, plays, operas, ballets. We have a football team, we have a soccer team, we have a baseball team, we have all sorts of different college sports. So if you aren't sure if you'll ever be able to take your kids on that trip through Europe where they're seeing all of the greats and going to all the museums and the arts and things like that, you don't really have to travel. We have a lot of this. The biggest detriment is it can be a little bit expensive. There are certainly children's museums and the zoo and things like that, which even that can be expensive. If you have little children, that the age where they like to read the same book over and over, you can take them to the same place over and over. You can take them to the same children's museum, the same zoo over and over again, and they're really going to like that. In fact, some people who are close to the zoo will buy a membership, they'll get their jogging stroller, and they'll just take their kids there through the zoo, every day. That's where they go for their walk. And it's great exercise. It gets everybody outside, which I really like. Our zoo, at least the Woodland Park Zoo, is very focused on education and enriched animal environments and those types of things. So it's a really pleasant place to be. There are a lot of plantings and landscaping. Museums, I really like the Burke Museum of Natural History. The MOHI, the Museum of History and Industry, is a fabulous introduction to how the state of Washington was formed, our logging and industrial history. If you haven't been here before, you should definitely, maybe not with your kids, but definitely go to the Underground Seattle tour, which is beneath the streets. Like you can look up and see the sidewalks and the glass in the sidewalks, because Seattle was originally built 20 feet below the level that it is now. But there's always something to do. And most of the museums have a free admission day once a month. So if you're home with little kids or homeschooling or anything like that, or maybe you're retired, but probably not if you're watching this video. But just to say, there's a lot of different social arts activities and places to go for culture here in the Seattle area. And now I want to touch on item number 4, which is schools. So obviously, if you have kids, you're going to have to look at what their educational options are. We've done public school, we've done homeschooling, and we've done private school. So I can speak to all of these options. I did public school and private school myself. as a kid. But a lot of people start with a baseline idea that they're going to be going into the public school system. And if that's you, I want to call your attention to this map. This is coming from greatschools.org, which is a wonderful resource for you to drill down into different neighborhoods and see what the schools are like there. But these are the schools that are the best. We're highlighting the best schools in the area. And as you can see, even in the city of Seattle, here in North Seattle, we have some very good, highly rated schools, even better rated schools in Bellevue. And for the most part, the peninsula is kind of out of reach from Seattle, but here on Bainbridge Island, you can take the ferry back and forth. So I've done other videos on Bainbridge Island. It's a pretty high-end, swanky suburb of Seattle, if you will, with a lot of waterfront property and, of course, great views of Seattle. Now, you may be looking at, different schools with different ratings, which is fine. This is not all of the schools that there are. This is just where the best schools are located. And you can see that there's definitely a concentration of them on the east side. The east side of Lake Washington, where Bellevue is, tends to be very expensive price range wise relative to the Seattle side. So if you are looking at schools and that's a big factor for you, rather than paying more for your house, like the median price house, I was just looking for another video, the median price house in Bellevue right now is 1.4 million. The median priced house in Seattle right now is about 800,000. So you're almost paying double for a median price house to go onto the east side of the lake. So just consider it as something to think about if you wanted to go to a private school and live in a neighborhood that had a less desirable school district. The math might work out pretty well for you on that. Obviously, it's a lot more expensive to live in some of these really highly rated areas. However, if you want to look at appreciation and viewing your house as an investment, the long-term value of the home will tend to continue to be desirable in that area as long as the neighborhood schools continue to be good. I would say these schools are all within the city of Seattle, which tends to be a little bit less stringently enforcing crime. My sister actually lived here in Ballard, and she had people sleeping in the park. She found a drug needle in the yard of her townhouse. So for her, she did not choose to continue to live there, and she moved up to Shoreline. And Shoreline schools are actually not bad. We're going to see like 7s and 8s in Shoreline. But after trying that, she decided private school was a good fit, and she has wonderful neighbors. We always go to Halloween at her house, and they've got neighbors that give out like the giant candy bars. They decorate their house with inflatables. They're like projecting little light shows onto the side of the house. All sorts of fun things are happening in Shoreline, but the schools I feel like have declined a little bit in the last couple of years since I was there. I went to Shoreline schools as well. Up here in kind of the North Creek, Canyon Park, Woodinville area, up here in Bothell in the North Shore School District is a place that's really been very popular lately for a good combination of access to the east side coming down 405 freeway here, good schools, and reasonable property values when compared to Bellevue. So if that's a big priority and you're not sure you can afford to live down here, take a look at kind of this intersection here with Highway 522 and 405 and see what you can find in that area. And now number 5, the 5th reason I think Seattle is a great place to raise a family is because there is so much for kids to do. One of the things that I've really realized when visiting, like say my in-laws in South Carolina, where it gets hot in the summer, is that every place seems to have sort of these off seasons that I wouldn't necessarily expect. Seattle is a place where you can play and be outside year round. As long as your kids won't melt when it rains, they can be out there, and they do get out there playing sports year round. Typically, it's going to be basketball or gymnastics or swimming in the winter. We have track, soccer, tennis, lacrosse in the spring. Summers are gorgeous. There are all sorts of summer camps. If you work and you don't want your kids to be at the house by themselves. You can get them in a YMCA camp, a nature camp, a zoo camp, a science camp, a learn to code camp, gymnastics camp. There's really something for them to do every single week. And if you want to be at home with them, there are all sorts of places. You can go swimming at the pool. You can go swimming at the beach. You can go on hikes. You can meet up with moms groups. You can have cooking classes. There are all sorts of things to do. And even in the winter, when it gets dark, they can still enjoy some time to play outside after school. They can be doing sports. They can be doing activities. It's not a place where you're ever just cooped up inside with nothing to do and nobody to do it with. We're not a rural community with very few resources. We're not an urban, well, we are an urban community, but unless you're really living in the city, I probably wouldn't send my kids out to play in downtown, the streets of downtown Seattle. But if you're living in a suburb, then yes, they can go outside. I used to go jogging, when I was training for cross country, like I said before, my girlfriends and I would go jogging around on all the streets by Northgate after school. And it rarely is it so cold that we can't go out. Rarely is it so hot that we can't go out. If you're like a runner, you can run 365 days a year. And I think kids are the same way. They can get outside, and there are just so many amenities. There are pocket parks in the neighborhood. My daughter likes to walk down the hill to the local elementary school. There's a couple of parks nearby, and she can meet up with her friends there, and they can go dangle their feet in the stream and look for salmon. They can go like cruise around the shopping mall and look at Ross Dress for Less and go get drinks at Starbucks and things like that. So, I mean, depending on how comfortable you feel, how your neighborhood is, how much you like to free range your kids, you could always go with them and do these things. Now, ironically, the city of Seattle itself has very few children. I believe I read something that there were more dogs in Seattle than there were children, and there are also more cats in Seattle than there were children. And there might even be more cats than there are dogs. I'm not sure. But there are a lot of animals. And so to me, this suggests that there are a lot of single people and couples that have not had kids, people moving in and out for work, elderly people, that type of thing. So the city of Seattle itself may not be as high a concentration of kids, although there are certainly wonderful enclaves with lots of different families. But just make sure if you are coming to the area and you want it to be a great place for your kid, take a look at that on a case-by-case basis, especially if you're looking at, say, living in a condo in Capitol Hill or downtown Seattle or something like that. These are very urban locations which may not cater to the white picket fence lifestyle that a lot of families see for themselves. So just think about the neighborhoods, and I would love to help match you up with the right one. Like I said at the beginning of the video, I am a real estate agent, and I specialize in helping people like you find the right neighborhood based on the lifestyle that you'd like to have. I had a client last summer whose daughter was in a very advanced dance program where they lived, and so they wanted to find something here that they could live near a studio that would continue to challenge her in her dance, right? Some people have special needs and they need to be close to medical facilities or occupational therapy and that type of thing. Lots of opportunities, lots of great resources, wonderful place to raise kids. I was raised here. I have really enjoyed raising my children here as well. And if there is anything I can do for you as far as answering questions, please feel free to reach out. Again, my name is Emily Cressy. I'm at homeproassociates.com. You can always give me a call or a text message as well. I am here working full-time to help families like you find the home for them in the Seattle area. So I'm busy making more videos. Let me know in the comments if this one was helpful and what you're looking for next. In the meantime, here are a couple other videos that I think you'll really enjoy, and I will see you on the next one.